Fellas, I cannot believe we have been sleeping on this build all season. Some of you have already brought it up, and I'm so glad you continue to bring it up because Arc Hunters, you guys are nasty. Now, for those that missed our Infinite Super build, that one was pretty good. It was a fantastic way to get your Super back, but this is our Infinite Grenade build. Do you just ever want to not use your guns? Do you want to throw 5 back-to-back grenades while getting your super charged insanely quick at the same time? Do you also want a 3-second dodge cooldown? Well, this is the build for you. We're back on Arc Strider, and as far as abilities and your super goes, you can really utilize anything you want. The only thing you're limited to is skip grenades. And of course, we're going to be utilizing Shinobu's Vow, which buffs only skip grenades. Now, personally, I do like the new Hunter Arc Super because it dishes out some serious DPS. It's also great for both ad control and just locking down areas, as well as DPS. And it looks cool, but for your aspects, you're going to be rocking Flow State, which states that defeating a jolted target makes you amplified. And while you're amplified, your dodge recharges more quickly. You're more resilient while dodging, and your reload speed is greatly increased. Your other aspect is up to you, as neither of those directly benefit this build, so we'll leave it open for your choice. As for Fragments, on the other hand, these are pretty locked in place because they are very important for this build. First, you'll want Spark of Shock, which will make our grenades jolt targets. Spark of Ions, which will spawn an Ionic Trace upon defeating jolted targets. Now, I do want to mention this does have a cooldown, so it won't be proccing for every kill, but it's often enough to provide a benefit. Spark of Focus, which states that after sprinting for a short time, your class ability regeneration is increased. This paired with the increase we already get when we're amplified makes it so we almost always have our dodge up within seconds of using it. And lastly, Spark of Amplitude, which states that rapidly defeating targets while amplified will create an orb of power. Now, this also has a cooldown just like Spark of Ions, but once again, it's still worth it. Now, let's talk about what weapons you'll want. Usually with our builds and build videos, we have a set weapon or weapons to go alongside with the build. This might be the first time where it's ultimately up to you. When testing this build, we're using our actual guns so little that it's hard to recommend anything specific because you're just barely using them. We do have some small recommendations though. Since you're going to be using your grenade non-stop, pairing this with a weapon that has Adrenaline Junkie is really good. That way when you do use your gun, you have that increase in damage. You can also pair this with like a Demolitionist weapon or even a Demolitionist Wellspring weapon. You can get that roll on things like Ogma. But other than that, use whatever exotic you want or really whatever weapons you want for this build, as this build literally has nothing to do with your weapons. Now jumping back to our exotic armor of choice, Shinobu's Vow. You probably never thought Shinobu's Vow would be meta inside of PvE, but it is. It comes with the perk New Tricks, which improves your skip grenades, and you gain an additional skip grenade charge. Now, skip grenades actually return energy when they damage enemies. And improved skip grenades means that each grenade has an extra drone, going from 4 to now 5. And those drones track much more aggressively, meaning you don't have to be as accurate when throwing these grenades. You can just chuck them in the general vicinity of enemies, and they will hunt down something for you. The main part of this perk is that we're getting that extra grenade charge, and that just damaging enemies gives us grenade energy back. So the more damage we deal, the more energy we get. But in complete honesty, as long as you hit just one single enemy with a grenade with this build, you'll have another grenade ready to go instantly. Now, what's going to end up happening though, is that we'll be getting so much grenade energy so fast that most of the time after you throw both your grenades, so much energy is going to be coming from both of them, plus everything else we have going on with our mods, that you're going to have both of these grenades right back. Speaking of mods and armor affinity, let's hit that real quick. For armor affinity, you're going to want everything solar except Shinobu's Vow, which we have on Void. In our helmets, we have double Ashes Asset mods, which is slowly becoming a staple of our builds. It's just way too good, guys. The super energy it provides on grenade kills, especially when 2 of them are slotted, it's hard to pass up. Considering we're not really using our weapons, we're not really utilizing ammo finder mods. We also have the Charge with Light mod, Firepower, which states that when you are charged with light and you throw your grenade, you regain a portion of your grenade energy, consuming 1 stack of Charge with Light. This mod also stacks to provide more benefits, which is why we have Firepower also slotted for our chests and boots. This means that when we throw our grenade, we'll get a substantial amount of grenade energy back, even before we even get the grenade energy from Shinobu's perk. Now moving down to Shinobu's, we have double bolstering detonation mods. This mod states that when you cause damage with the grenade, you get class ability energy. This will tie into the increased class ability energy regeneration that we're already getting from being amplified and from Spark of Focus, meaning you will literally always have your dodge. And this is not a joke, guys. You literally always have your dodge. Now, granted, this might be overkill for class ability regeneration, so of course you can slot this out for other artifact mods, especially champion mods, but still, just rocking one of these is really nice. Now, in Shinobu's Vow, we also have Elemental Charge, and this allows us to become charged with light when we pick up an elemental well. We'll be picking up arc wells in this case, so each well will grant us charge with light times 2, essentially allowing for both of our skip grenades to benefit from the Firepower mod. In our chest piece, we have another Firepower mod. You can slot on anything else, including damage resist mods, thermal shock plating. In our boots, besides Firepower, we have double Innervation mods. Now, Innervation gives us grenade energy when we pick up orbs, which we are generating generating a lot of thanks to sparks of amplitude. Now, you don't have to overcommit here to that innervation mod. Say you're needing health, you can slot in just one of those and then have a recuperation mod as your second leg mod. And finally, for our class item, there are actually two routes you can go here. You can either just load up 2 bomber mods, which will reduce our grenade cooldown when we use our class ability. And considering we're dodging so much, you can see where we're constantly getting our grenade back. And then of course, we're pairing this with elemental ordnance, which is what's allowing us to generate arc wells, as each grenade kill will spawn an arc elemental well. However, if you don't want to go this route, you can actually swap out the double bomber mods. You could still rock elemental ordnance, but simultaneously you can slot in lightning strikes twice. This is the artifact mod for this season, which essentially states that after throwing an arc grenade, you gain increased grenade recharge for a short time, and that arc final blows extends the duration of this benefit. You can see the synergy here, guys. Beautiful. Now, as far as stats go, you do want to prioritize resilience, as this is going to allow you to be very, very tanky. Once you have max resilience, you could choose whatever you want to max out next. I know that discipline seems the obvious choice, but again, there's so much here feeding into your grenade recharge. It's really not necessary to have high discipline. Now, for the gameplay loop for this build, guys, it's the simplest loop we have ever had for a build video. You essentially want to throw your grenade at enemies and then dodge. You get your grenade charge right back as soon as the grenades deal damage to those enemies, even though you still have another grenade charge on hand thanks to Shinobu's. You then go and pick up the arc well that the grenade kill generated, and if you kill multiple enemies with that grenade, there will also be an orb there, and you'll spawn an ionic trace. So your first grenade, before you're even charged with light, will start the regeneration process when it begins to damage enemies. And upon killing those enemies, you're going to get an orb, an ionic trace, and an arc well, all of which will give you grenade energy, plus the dodge you did after you threw your grenade. Then once you pick up that arc well, you'll become charged with light ×2. So now you can go ham with grenades, even throwing both of them back to back, just as long as you're hitting those enemies. And if you're constantly dodging when you have your class ability back up, and you're always picking up those arc wells to refresh your charge with light attacks, you're literally never running out of grenades. Even against single health targets, like here against Carl in this gameplay loop, you can get 5 grenades off back to back before you run out of grenade energy. It's nuts. And not just Carl, we took this build into Catch Crash and did the same thing against the boss in there. And then again against Overload champions and a Master Nightfall, where this build held up surprisingly well. So let's go into a deep breakdown of everything that's happening in this short span of time. When you throw your first grenade, you're going to get grenade energy back when it damages enemies thanks to Shinobu's vow. You dodge right after the grenade leaves your hand. That way you get instant grenade energy back thanks to the double bomber mods, or of course you allow lightning strikes twice to take effect. Throughout this process, you'll be getting class energy right back when that grenade damages enemies thanks to double bolstering detonation mods. So again, try to get that dodge off as soon as you can after throwing a grenade. That way you can benefit from bolstering detonation and of course the damage your grenade is dealing. This grenade will also jolt enemies thanks to Spark of Shock, and this jolt will spread chain lightning to surrounding enemies. And when those enemies die, considering they're now jolted, it will generate an ionic trace thanks to Spark of Ions and make you amplified thanks to Flow of State aspect. Along with the ionic trace, you'll also generate an arc elemental well because of elemental ordnance. And if you killed multiple enemies with that grenade, you'll get an orb of power from Spark Amplitude. So all in the same spot, you should have an ionic trace tracking to you and an arc well and an orb of power waiting for you. The arc well and ionic trace will give you energy to all your abilities, and the orb will give you super energy as well as grenade energy thanks to the innervation mods. And remember, every grenade kill you get will be granting you super energy because we have double Ashes asset mods. Now, when you pick up an arc well and the trace and the orb, you'll have your first grenade charge again. You'll probably have it even before then, but you'll get charge of light ×2 from arc well and elemental charge, and you simply rinse and repeat after this. But this time, you'll be getting even more grenade energy back thanks to 3 firepower mods that we have slotted. Each time firepower procs, it only takes 1 stack of charge with light, meaning all of your skip grenades can benefit from a single arc well pickup. So there's really no need to jump through hoops in between grenade throws. You can literally just throw both of them. And even before you dodge, once you get this rotation going, you'll still have almost another grenade already recharged. Now, once those 2 grenades make impact, you'll perform a dodge. This will of course grant you both your grenades almost instantly, which means you're always going to have a grenade. You'll always be amplified, which means you'll always be generating an orb with Spark of Amplitude outside of its cooldown, and you're always jolting enemies, so you're constantly getting ionic traces when Spark of Ions is active. This is also contributing to constant chunks of super energy from constant grenade spam with Ashes assets. Guys, using this build, you're literally just sprinting around, dodging and throwing grenades all the time. It never ends, unless of course you whiff both your grenades, which is honestly hard to do with Shinobu's vow because of the drone tracking on skip grenades is ruthless. Now, why isn't this build insanely broken? Well, thanks to the nerf to skip grenades way back in April with hotfix 4.0.1.1, where they changed skip grenade impact damage from 8 to 4 and made the tracking strength begin to decrease after 1 second down to 50% strength after 3 seconds. I think Shinobu's vow just reverts those tracking changes. Because as we were testing this and this overall build, I felt like we didn't really have any issues with skip grenade tracking when using Shinobu's Vow. And it was definitely a change that they made in anticipation of Arc 3.0. Granted, maybe this build is kind of broken, but again, the damage that skip grenades do is definitely not. One skip grenade with Jolted Fragment equipped only deals around 32,000 damage. That's the second lowest damage output among arc grenades, only beating out arc bolts, which is meant for multiple targets anyway. Even flashbang grenades are hitting around 40,000. So the single grenade damage isn't there, but when you can instantly slingshot them over and over again, I think it makes up for the damage. Being charged with light ×2 and just spamming grenades at a single beefy target lets you throw almost 6 of them back to back. That's 32,000 × 6. We're looking at almost 200,000 damage, which is actually comparable to our Lord of Thunder build, which, by the way, check that out. What's even nastier is when we tested this in Master Nightfalls, and that exact gameplay loop works here just fine. You don't run out of grenades, you basically always have your dodge, and you can literally get your super 3 times in a single room in the Sepic's Master Nightfall. That's how many grenades we're throwing and how much damage they're able to deal. Sure, the base damage isn't amazing, but you gotta remember each one of them jolts enemies and chains lightning. That adds up quickly, and on top of that, you never run out. If you take this into Master Nightfalls or even GMs, and I am gonna be taking this into GMs next week, all you wanna do is replace one of the bolstering detonation mods with whatever champions mods you need, and you won't break this build. You can replace a bomber mod with surge detonators if you're going against overload champions, and since overloads are tanky and of course hard to track, skip grenades are actually fantastic for them. You'll be able to take advantage of your grenade 5 to 6 times back to back against a single champ. We had no issues running this build in Master Nightfalls. This was granting us supers non-stop, and when we actually sat down and counted how many skip grenades we threw in a single room, 33 skip grenades. 33! So guys, I know a lot of people think that Arc 3.0 is poopy. I don't know why. I think it's fantastic. This build right here with Shinobu's Vow turns it up to 11 for Arc 3.0 hunters. And this is definitely going to be a build we're going to try in Grandmasters. Big shout out to the team on this one. A lot of research was done here. A lot of exploring on this build. Good stuff, everybody. For those wondering, yes, we will be making a video going into Grandmasters next week on 3 builds to be locking in for the upcoming GMs. And GMs this season are looking pretty challenging. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.